right, Panther fans, hockey fans. So, welcome to the third annual Florida Panthers against somebody Stanley Cup Finals preview. Now, can you believe it? This is the ninth season of the channel. It's seen a lot. It wasn't that long ago I was standing in this exact spot trying to talk myself and you into the possibility that maybe Seth Griffith was a viable top-line guy. So, oh boy. So 2 years ago, Panthers, everybody knows what they did, right? You come from behind, you're 10 points out of the playoffs, you busted your ass. We beat Boston for Hagee in overtime. We swept the Canes with the 4 overtime thing, and it just looked like the Panthers were the team of destiny. And then they wasn't. They just ran out of body parts. Kachuk got hurt. Luosterainen was out against Vegas, and ran out of body parts. Okay, fine. So last year they do all of the work, and I mean all of the work. And we tweaked the roster just a little bit. They get all the way back against Edmonton, and they got up 3-0 against Edmonton, and they said, "Oh, great! Where's the cup? That's it, right? It's 3-0. They can't win after being down 3-0, so just give us the cup now, right?" Except Edmonton had a different idea. Edmonton actually realized you needed to win 4. And so while the Panthers kind of putzed around waiting for them to bring the cup out regardless of what the score was, Edmonton won game 4, 5, and 6, and then gave Florida every last bit that they could handle in game 7. Like I always say, if you want to know how hard it is to win a cup, go watch the last 7 minutes or so of last year's game 7, and you will see at least 3 pucks that you will have to rewatch over and over and over again to find out how did that not go in for Edmonton and how did that game not go to overtime. That's the slim line. Now, this year, Edmonton is last year's Panthers. Okay? Last year, Edmonton started off terrible, had to do a bunch of work. You follow what I'm saying? They get all the way to the finals, and then, right? I mean, that's probably how an Edmonton Oilers fan felt last year. Like, like they teased us with the great comeback, and you go through the playoffs, and we're going to reverse sweep the Panthers, and So, now Edmonton's all the way back. Both teams are back. So, there's no reason to sit here and talk about Bobrovsky or Skinner or McDavid and Barkov and this one and that one. The only thing that really has any effect with the actual players right now is the fact that Hyman is out. But since Corey Perry has decided to be 20 years old again, I don't know how much it's going to matter, but it will. I'm sure Oilers fans are like, oh no, it's going to matter. But is that going to be enough? Hyman being out is not enough to say, okay, now Florida's definitely going to win. This series is not going to come down to that. It's going to come down to, well, let's see what it's going to come down to. The first goal of the game is going to be huge for either one of these teams. Okay? And then holding on to that lead is going to be huge for either one of these teams. Both teams, in some ways, are mirror images of each other in the sense that if they can get a 1-goal lead and lock you down. But the flip side to that is they could be down 2 and they got the guns to come back and still win that game. But when you're down goals and you're chasing goals, that's when the breakaways can happen, especially if you're Florida. Now, Panthers have some guys that we can get a breakaway, right? We can get a breakaway, but we don't have a McDavid or really even a Draisaitl in terms of guys that it's a breakaway. It's in the net. Don't even bother. Just put the score up before McDavid even takes the shot. It's in the back of the net. Florida doesn't have anybody like that. So it's going to be extra important for the Panthers to get the first goal of the game. It doesn't mean we're going to lose if we don't, but coming back 2-0 on Edmonton, I don't like our chances there. Now, so you've got that into play. And then, of course, you have the Panthers' penchant for taking some stupid penalties. And I'm not even going to get into the whole trope with Panthers are dirtier and all of that. I'm just not going to argue with people about that. People that understand hockey understand that the Panthers play right on the edge, which sometimes leads to things being over the edge. That's how you win. If you don't like it, build a team that plays that way, and then suddenly, funnily, you will like it. That's the sport. It's always been the sport. It will always be the sport. And for those of you who would like that to change, if you take the violence out of playoff hockey, if you take the tenacity and that element out of playoff hockey, the NHL will cease to exist, because that's when people watch. Okay, I don't know if you guys notice or not, okay? But regular season hockey, for the most part, can be, it's you know, you can have some good games, don't get me wrong. It's still the best sport. But you get into that game 50, 60, 70 grind, and you realize by the end of the season, you're like, okay, it's playoff hockey. It's a different sport. It just is, but it's what keeps the sport itself afloat, because nobody else has 2 months, 2.5 months, like 2 months of just pure beat the crap out of the other guy and see who's left standing. It's like boxing on skates sometimes. So Panthers are going to need to stay out of the box a little bit more, right? Because Edmonton can take a penalty, and the Panthers' power play is, nah. Hey, nah. It's like it is wildly inconsistent, and it has been that way for years. Generally speaking, if you look at the Panthers' power play, where the stats lie at the end of the year, you're like, okay, they were okay, but it's wild swings of 5 goals and 10 chances, and then none in 25. It's an exaggeration, but you get the point. So if the Panthers' power play decides to get hot for a couple of games, that could literally be the difference in the series. Doesn't mean we have to have that, and it doesn't mean we lose if we don't get that. But Panthers' power play gets hot for a game and a half, that could easily win 2 games in the series, because the rest of the stuff is going to be so tight. Now, what I think it's all going to come down to, let me just start here. In my season preview, I picked the Panthers to repeat. I'm obviously not changing my pick, okay? All due respect, I'm not going to do to my team what Dangle did to his, which is predict a loss in Game 7 and then be correct. That's not going to happen here. But what I will say is what this series is going to come down to, in my opinion, is what you saw, Panthers, Canes, Edmonton, Dallas. Energy. Okay? Now, the Panthers, it's definitely 2 different teams. It's Jekyll and Hyde. Now, only so often do the Panthers play without the right energy. But when they do, it is ugly. Okay? Because the system is predicated on the forwards doing a lot of work. And if they don't do a lot of work, the puck's going in the back of the net. It's just that simple. It's been that way since day one with Maurice. Now, Edmonton got to play a Dallas team that kind of a mirror image of their coach. They should shave their head and try to be a little bit more animated. DeBoer, I don't want to rip the guy, although I might have just ripped him. But you saw it last night on the bench when he tried to, get his team going and everything like that. I mean, when Maurice gets his guys going, you can see the spit coming out of his mouth on camera. With DeBoer, you kind of just got the feeling that it looked like a politically correct rant. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell. Can he yell louder than that? It was so subdued and so even-keeled, and that's how Dallas played. It was just like flatline the whole time. Oh, a little bump. But for the most part, the exception of one period, Dallas didn't have a ton of energy, so Edmonton's going to have to be prepared for a bump in the energy from Florida. Now, the flip side to that is, of course, it's the wildest comparison here, because now this is Florida's 3rd straight final. So normally, if it was a finals rematch, you would have 2 teams up against each other that had both played the same amount of hockey, because they went to the finals last year and now they're in the finals this year. Except the Panthers had 50 guys at the 4 Nations and also went on a whole ass another cup run the year before last. So how much of that is going to play into how much energy Florida has? To me, want me to be honest with you, right up here. To me, it's mental. The Panthers have the physical energy to do what they need to do. They do, and they have throughout the regular season, and they've tried it in the playoffs with not so good success. But they have at times attempted to mitigate their lack of energy by just kind of playing like just can we get away with only like 70% effort. And during the regular season, we've got enough talent, that they did that for most of the games. We can't do that in the playoffs. And you saw that at 3-0 against Carolina. Carolina decided they were going to fight back. And you could generally see that the attitude the Panthers had was like, they lost game 4 and they was fixing to lose game 5 until they all looked around at each other and said, damn it, we're going to have to play hard. And then that was the end of the series. So Florida's mindset and desire is going to play a lot into this, which leads me to the other side of the ice, and that's Edmonton. Now, I talked about revenge last night, and a couple of people saying, well, it's really not revenge, it's just you guys are in the way. It's revenge. Okay, let's not make this into a more psychological piece than it needs to be. It's freaking revenge. We beat you guys in 7 games last year after the fan base of Edmonton was teased with a reverse sweep and a 1-goal game for half of game 7. If revenge isn't the motivating factor, then there's something wrong with McDavid and Draisaitl. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that to be critical. Revenge is a motivating factor. If you get revenge, you get the cup. And I'm not saying that they want revenge more than the cup, but revenge gets them the cup. So the idea that they wouldn't be trying to harness that energy, that's fool's gold. This is going to come down to how bad does Edmonton want it and how bad does Florida want it. Now, what's the different motivation? Obviously, Edmonton, we just talked about that. With Florida, Chucky did touch on it. He said, we have a chance to do something that very few teams have done around here, and that's obviously win 2 straight. It hasn't happened a whole lot, especially with 82-game seasons. It's been quite some time. Will that be enough to overcome what Edmonton's motivation is going to be? Now, I haven't looked, but I'm going to assume the Panthers are the underdog in this series. And oddly, I feel more comfortable starting this series out on the road and having to play a possible Game 7 on the road than I do at home. Because the Panthers have just had a habit of being a little bit too comfortable, especially the second game home. So there's a lot of different ways that you could look at this. The matchups, who's gonna match up? Are we gonna put the Barkov line against McDavid? Are we gonna try to do a little bit of what we've done before, which see if Lundell's line can handle McDavid, and then find out if we have some possible matchup advantages elsewhere in the lineup? I wouldn't be completely against trying that. Health-wise, with the exception of Hyman being out, both teams should be in pretty decent shape, right? Florida had some injuries towards the end of the series, but Reinhart did come back and play, so his knee's going to get some rest. Mikula is going to get his shoulder some rest. The question mark was Greer, but if Greer can't play, you put Boquist in on that 4th line. It's not the same, and for you Panther fans, I don't suspect Sam Miskevich is going to get on the ice in this series unless we get pretty far down the depth chart. But that's a subject for a different story. In terms of Edmonton, they're out Hyman, but they got Ekholm back last night. So health, as of the beginning of this series, is not going to be a determining factor yet. You block some shots, a guy takes a hit, especially with the Panthers, because Chucky's groin going to hold out. Is Reinhardt's knee going to hold out? Is Mikula's shoulder going to hold out? You follow what I'm saying? So the Panthers, I would say, probably are on the back end of the injury situation a little bit, but I'm sure Edmonton has things going on as well. In the end, if you look at the motivation factor, you probably have to give the edge to Edmonton. If you look at the energy factor, you probably have to give the edge to Edmonton. Edmonton has home ice. What's the difference? Bubba. Bubba. That's the difference. That's what's going to win the Panthers this cup. Now, Bobrovsky didn't exactly steal the cup last year, but he did help us steal Game 7. But it's been a hot minute since Bob has had one of those 5-6 game runs of just absolutely lights out. I'm talking lights out type of prime Vasilevsky type stuff. That's going to be the difference in this series. He knows it. He's the one that has played some extra hockey just like everybody else. And no disrespect to Skinner, but he hasn't faced the type of onslaught the Panthers are going to bring in these playoffs, okay? Panthers are a completely different animal. I know people are saying, well, Edmonton's different. Marchand ain't Tarasenko either on that third line. That third line has a completely different personality this year, a completely different look, and they can basically be our top line many nights and let Barkov and that line play a little bit more heavy on the defensive end. So that's something that Edmonton's going to have to deal with depth-wise. In the end, I look at all the edges that Edmonton has, but I'm picking Bob to steal one. This is going to be Bobrovsky's, what do you want to call that? His legacy series? Yeah, we'll call this his legacy series. It's going to be extremely important that we don't give up the first goals. He's got Stuart Skinner opposite him. Bob knows where goals are coming from Edmonton. And my opinion is he is going to recognize the opportunity that he has as an individual. And I know he's a team guy. But inside, I think he's going to recognize everything else that I just said. That Edmonton might have a little bit more energy, a little bit more motivation, and home ice. But Bobrovsky can be the equalizer and can be the one that brings the Panthers over the top. And give me another one of these signs, just with the number 25 on it. So that's going to do it for my third annual Stanley Cup final preview. It's going to be a war. I can't imagine there aren't going to be overtime games. There were none in the last series as far as I remember, right? I don't think there was any overtime games. And that's it. Oh, you want to know how many games? Oh, you're all going to kill me for this one. Y'all going to kill me for this one. But because it went 7 last year, Panthers in 6. Yes, I know that means we'd have to close it out at home. Panthers in 6. That's the pick. All right.